get acquainted with the vibrant world of ELTAI. For those of you who are new to our community or simply need a refresher, we have a brief video to showcase some of the incredible activities and initiatives ELTAI is involved in. Play the video, please. Sir, we're waiting for the video.
Zulya ma'am, please start with the regular instructions. Meanwhile, I'll check with Kavan.
Yeah, I understand. Fine, sir. Okay, before we begin, here are a few important points to ensure everything runs smoothly. Please post your questions in the chat box during the webinar. We encourage you to stay with us for the entire session. That's very important. Certificates will be issued within 10 working days. Please avoid sending follow-up emails immediately after the webinar to prevent delays. A feedback form will be shared at the end. Please fill it out to receive your certificates. Certificates are available for school, UG and PG students, ELTAI members, and foreign nationals. There's a special request for the PhD scholars, and they are encouraged to join ELTAI. Check your inbox and spam folders for the certificate email. Keep a copy of the confirmation email after submitting the feedback form for verification. We invite non-members to join ELTAI for access to resources, professional development, and a strong peer network. I think the video is ready now. Let us play, please. Indeed, that was a beautiful and inspiring video. ELTAI's commitment to empowering English language educators across India is truly commendable. Friends, to oversee this discussion, we have a moderator. Let me take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed moderator of today's session. Professor Soujanya Pudi is a distinguished academician and an expert in effective communication, currently serving as the professor and head of the Center for Language and Communication at NSHM Knowledge Campus in Kolkata. With over 28 years of experience in teaching, corporate training, and consulting, Professor Pudi has honed her skills in facilitating impactful interactions and fostering meaningful connections. She is an alumna of prestigious institutions, including Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Anantapur Campus, Central Institute of English and Foreign Languages, CFL Hyderabad, and the Indian Institute of Management, IIM Trichy. In addition to her academic roles, Professor Pudi is a published author. Her book, Connect Mastering the Art of Effective Communication, offers comprehensive guidance on honing communication skills and becoming a proficient communicator. On her professional endeavors, Professor Pudi is a director of Career Development Center. She works towards bridging teaching learning gaps with value-based academic curriculum for the educational institutions in rural India. Now, without any further delay, let me hand over the session to our moderator for today. Over to you, Dr. Soujanya Pudi.
Thank you so much, Zulaila Shakir. It's, in fact, a momentous occasion today to be listening to none other than Ms. Reena Puri. I think when we talk about children's literature, the first name which comes to our mind is Amar Chitra Katha. And who else could be eloquent in talking to us about the transition of children's literature today? But before that, I would like to introduce Ms. Reena Puri, who's the executive editor of Amar Chitra Katha. She's worked with the company for about 34 years, spending the first 15 with Tinkle Comics and learning from the founder editor, Anant Pai. She learned from Uncle Pai, as he's called, how to communicate with children more effectively and how to use the comics format to engage with children and pass on some fun and learning. She took over as executive editor of Amar Chitra Katha in 2008 and leads a team in content creation. Her special skills lie in storytelling, comic scripting, editing, planning visuals, and understanding comics illustrations. Her desire is to see Amar Chitra Katha grow to greater heights, to take the amazing heritage of India to young people all over the world, and to work towards Anant Pai's vision of emotional integration among the children of India. Welcome and good evening once again, Ms. Puri, and we look forward to very, very insightful discussions on the transition of children's literature. So before that, we firstly would like to listen to your journey with Amar Chitra Katha, and you have seen the transition which has happened to the comic, the text form to the digital format now. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here and to see so many people on this forum. My journey with Amar Chitra Katha started in 1991, actually. And it's been a very long time. And I'm really called the dinosaur of the organization, actually, because I'm the oldest member there. But it's been a journey of color. It's been a journey of imagination. It's been a journey of fun. And I've never regretted for one moment that I took up this job. The whole, my journey with Amar Chitra Katha started because of my children. They were the ones who persuaded me that I must join Tinkle because, you know, they were reading Tinkle. I wasn't too familiar with them. And I was a child, there was no Amar Chitra Katha. So when they heard that I was applying to Tinkle Comics as assistant editor, they were very excited. And they insisted that I join it. And I did. I was accepted by Anant Pai. And it's been a wonderful journey from then till now. Yeah, Soujanya, I have sort of straddled a major, chunk of technological development, I think. And started off at a time when we wrote with our pencils and paper. We erased mistakes. We didn't have a delete button. And we typed out things on a regular typewriter. And artists drew their pictures. They didn't have the privilege of having everything digital and turnarounds made digitally. They had to imagine these things themselves, take inspiration from artists like Ravi Verma or from the sculptures in temples. And it was a different era altogether. So would you like me to tell you, Soujanya, a little bit about how Amar Chitra Katha started?
Yes, that
Yeah.
would firstly, that would actually
Okay.
start the conversation
Yes.
going.
Yes. So it was started in 1967 by Anant Pai, who by education was a chemical engineer. But somewhere along the line, when he used to go home for his holidays and his family used to have, the children in the family used to run a newsletter. And that newsletter used to be full of stories. Kids would write the stories themselves. And they would all come to him with it to show it to him before they showed it to the rest of the family. And he realized that all the children were writing stories with, heroes and protagonists with very English names. So there was Jill and there was Bill and there was, John and Peter and Sylvia and Mary. But there were no Indian names. And the flowers, they were all daffodils or tulips or bluebells, flowers that you really don't see around in India too much. So he thought that why are our children so, far away from reality? Why don't they look around them and see what is in their lives instead of looking somewhere far away, which to a place they've not even seen? So he realized it was because of all the Western books that were coming in. Nothing wrong with Western books. I'm not saying anything is wrong with them. But what was happening is that they were reading only those books, and forgetting that there was a huge treasure of stories in our own country. They were being totally, they were oblivious to it. Then once he was going with his wife along Chandni Chowk in Delhi, and he happened to stop outside a TV shop. Those are the days when we stopped outside TV shops and looked in to see programs because nobody could really have a TV at home. It was a luxury item. So he also stood outside because there was a quiz program going on. And in that quiz program, the students were being asked questions on Greek mythology, and they knew the answers. But the answers were coming out. Who's the king of the ocean? It was Poseidon. Who stayed on Mount Olympus? It was Zeus. But a simple question like who was the mother of Ram? Drew a blank. They didn't seem to know the answer and had to be prompted many times. So that really set him thinking, and he decided to leave the whole idea of becoming an engineer. And he set out on this journey, which he wanted to just acquaint the children of India with their heritage. That was the main idea behind starting Amar Chitra Katha.
Wonderful.
And then after that, it was a struggle for him. Though he wanted to bring out our mythology, our history in the comics format, and he was discouraged heavily because he was told, how can you write the stories of gods in the comics format? Because comics in those days was a strict no-no. Bad stories, bad language. It's all from the West, from America, and it's just not good. But he realized the children were actually taking the comics, hiding them in their atlases, like I did, and reading them behind their parents' back, behind the teacher's back, because they loved the format. It was lots of pictures and very little text, and it was simply written and they could understand the story. So he realized that the comics format was the perfect way, to actually connect with the children.
Right.
So despite all the discouragement, he went ahead with his plan and went around asking, to see if somebody would help him to publish. He would create, he would do everything, but someone just had to print it for him.
Yeah.
Finally, he got a chance with India Book House, and he sat down on one table. They gave him a table and a chair, but no salary. They said, we'll print your copy. We're not going to pay you anything. So he used to work for the Times of India for his bread and butter, then come to the IBH office, India Book House office, sit there and work on the script and, try and get artists and all that. And yeah, that's how the journey started, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Absolutely. I guess it's now over 440 titles and more than 86 million issues.
Yes.
Right? I
Yes.
guess the name was very aptly chosen as Immortal Picture Stories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
as the name Amar Chitra Katha signifies, and transitioning from immortal mythological gods to the patriotic, the historical leaders. And now as we move into the current times, moving into various genre of other teachings. I want you to quickly reflect on your transition from Tinkle to Amar Chitra Katha. How was it and how did it differ? Because here we are looking at depiction of the stories in in a different form altogether.
Yes. So these are two different types of comics which address two very separate niches. They have their own niche.
Right.
One does not step on the other's toes as such, because Amar Chitra Katha is the stories that already exist.
Yeah.
We have not created them. These are historical stories, these are biographies, these are folk tales and fables, this is classical literature, and it is mythology, and it exists, and it is there for anyone to pick up any time and read. Whereas Tinkle was seen as something for, just for a child to be able to read and entertain himself, and at the same time get a learning from it. So the stories were mysteries, adventures, little thrillers, and little folk tales from all over the world we used to have in Tinkle in those days, and nothing to do with gods, goddesses, or historical figures. So it was two different things altogether, and we looked after Tinkle. We used to encourage children to write to us. Actually, we had something called Reader's Choice, and the children used to write letters to us. In fact, I remember one summer we got 10,000 letters in the summer holidays. We were flooded, and these did not come by email. There was no email in those days, so they used to handwrite the letters on scraps of paper and send them to us, and their ideas for stories, or one of the we used to have something called It Happened to Me, where we encouraged them to talk to us about their adventures. So they would send us those, they would send us questions, they would confess their problems to us. And we used to go through each one of those letters. Not one was missed. We had a person just to read those letters, to separate them into stacks of, this is for stories, this is for this, and this is for that. And then it used to come to the editorial. We used to go through the letters. We used to see which story has a potential. We didn't want a big, like no child can really write a full-length story, at that age. So even if there was a germ of an idea, we would take that story and we would write the script, add to it, and create a story for Tinkle. And the final list would be chosen by Anand Pai. He's called Uncle Pai by the children. So the final list bunch would go to him, and from that he would okay a story, and then he could write on it. And then we always created characters, special cartoon characters. I think our teachers here are the people here on this forum will remember some from Tinkle at least. There's Supandi, there is Shikari Shambhu, there's Tantri the Mantri. There are all these favorite characters and Kalia the Crow, who came in for a special reason. So Tantri the Mantri was a person who was always scheming against the king. So he was a person with a twisted mind, but he would always get blown off at the end, and nothing would happen with all his nasty plans. But that was Tantri. Then there was Shikari Shambhu, who was a hunter turned conservationist. So now he's not called Shikari Shambhu, he's called Shambhu. He's a conservationist. So we talked about the environment, we talk about conservation, we talk about animals through Shikari Shambhu. Then there's Kalia the crow, who lives in a forest and has adventures there. And through that also we talked about how to care for the environment. So like that, we have characters, who actually solve problems, who are sort of involved with the issues that concern children today. And that's how it's developed over the years. And with every generation, we change that, as they grow, their concerns, the issues that they face in school, they all change. And Tinkle has to keep in touch with all that. And, we've learned to keep in touch with that. So that is what I was doing in Tinkle. And then I left Tinkle in 2005 because I was moving to Bangalore. But then the following year, I realized that Amar Chitra Katha had opened a studio in Bangalore. And I applied to them again, and they gladly took me on board at once. And I was looking after Amar Chitra Katha. I started looking after Amar Chitra Katha at that time.
Yeah.
And Mr. Pai was looking after Amar Chitra Katha as well in those days. But then he fell ill and unfortunately passed away in 2012. And since then, I've just taken over from him, trying to fit into his shoes, which are colossal. I mean, I would never imagine that I can do that. I try. I've been mentored by him. He's been a father figure to me. He's been my teacher. He's been my friend. And whatever I've learned about writing for children, I've got it from him. So now I'm just continuing with his vision and hoping to take Amar Chitra Katha forward as well as I can.
Yeah, very, very, illustrious career and a lot of learnings all the way. And then the transition which has happened now to where we are seeing you. I remember in the last conference too, we are looking at Amar Chitra Katha being one major factor. How do we inculcate life skills? How do we improve on their employment skills? That was one theme which we are exploring. But keeping in mind the teachers who are here today, well, we're looking at Amar Chitra Katha has to be a one vehicle towards, improving the LSRW, basically, when we're looking at it in the current format now. So you said that you always, you would get a lot of letters when you were in Tinkle, but does that happen now? And what is the kind of input you receive from the readers or parents or teachers?
So now, in fact, it's, now there's the computer and there's the email. So it's much easier for a child to just get onto his computer or her computer and dash off a letter to us. So Tinkle still gets a lot of mail. Tinkle still gets a lot of story ideas. They still invite children to write. And parents are communicating with us at every stage, I think, because especially today, I feel young parents are very interested in giving good reading to their children. And they choose Amar Chitra Katha for the simple reason that it connects the child to his heritage, and they choose Tinkle because it is something they have grown up with also. So they have good memories, and they feel that their child will enjoy it, and they do. The children, they subscribe to Tinkle, and they subscribe to Amar Chitra Katha. So it continues. It's not that letter writing has stopped. It does continue in a big way. And I also go to various forums, to various schools, to various events where I get in touch with parents, I get in touch with children, and I'm dealing with them directly, and I get feedback from them. And of course, social media helps a lot. So we're always in touch with our readers, be it a child or be it a parent, be it a grandparent, we are in touch with them.
Right. As I see, there's a reflection also which has come in, because this is a big statement which says that even the parents are not so much aware of the culture. So, I think it becomes more imperative for us to encourage the children of today to be reading that. Now,
there's a reason why we need to know our culture, and which is why Mr. Pai wanted this. It was just not a random thought, because he felt that a tree is only as strong as its roots. The deeper a tree grows, the taller it grows. It becomes stronger. Then it spreads its branches out. It spreads its branches out. It invites birds. It invites, creatures, squirrels, and it imbibes a lot. It gives a lot, and it takes a lot. So similarly, a child who has deep roots in his or her culture can go anywhere in the world, spread his arms and take in as much from outside as possible, because taking in from the world, there's nothing wrong with it. There's so much good in the world around us. So we need to take in the good things from around the world. But he will never lose touch with his own identity. Those roots will give him the identity he needs. And that identity keeps him confident. It helps him to go out and talk about his own country. It helps him to feel proud and not, any lesser than any other country. So it's very important for those roots to grow deep so that the child can grow up and, just go out into the world and be himself.
So, but then as this one of the questions which has just popped in, which says that then Mr. Pai initially chose to publish about 10 foreign literary pieces, like Pinocchio, Cinderella, as part of the comic venture.
Yes, yes.
And what prompted his shift towards focusing on Indian narrative, which you've already said, but then how?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So India Book House had got the license to print 10 foreign folk tales in Hindi.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Mr. Binesh Chandani, who was the director, he told him, you first do these 10.
Yeah.
And then you do whatever you want to. So at first he had to do, the Sleeping Beauty and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Red Riding Hood. All those he did them in Hindi and published those 10. And after that, he could go to his own dream, which was Amar Chitra Katha, and the first comic he started with was Krishna. Which is why the first comic is numbered 11. The original numbers, it's numbered 11 because the first 10 are these folk tales, for fairy tales from abroad.
Oh, that's the connect.
Yeah.
We start off with 11 there. Okay, that's wonderful. Now, I remember my growing years when people were talking about when we used to read Amar Chitra Katha, but it would also dissuade us, because there's not much of creativity, but the language part of it. If you see, because as we transition into time, there have been cartoons, right? Slowly with the advent of television and in getting into the Indian household, there has been a major shift in the entire reading habits and the knowledge areas as well. So when this transition happened, how, I think you now moved into the digital application as well. So it also hampers language learning. So would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, but first I'd like to answer this lady who has said that the first 10 were in Kannada. That is right. They were in Kannada and in Hindi. Because Mr. Pai belongs to Karnataka, and therefore he did those in Kannada and in Hindi. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so you were asking me about the transition into the digital format. And what was that, Soujanya, the second part?
The first one was about the cartoons having the influence at that time, and during that time, the transition from books to the television, which took place for the children, and we've lost a whole lot of a generation who stuck to it even to this day. And then Amar Chitra Katha now is available in the digital app per se. So how do you see the transition, and why, and how did it impact all across in your entire?
So the first hit came when Cartoon Network came up on TV.
Right.
And the children were glued to that. So we lost a lot of readers at that stage when the Cartoon Network came in. And then other forms of television, and they did come in, and we realized that we were losing ground. So we had to do something. But at the same time, the print was doing well. It was not that the print was not doing well. We were, reprinting. We were creating new. We were reprinting at that time. We were not creating new because there was a gap from 1980 to 2000 odd, where we did not create any Amar Chitra Kathas. We were doing only Tinkle and reprinting the Amar Chitra Kathas. So that happened, and then it was during COVID actually where we took the big leap. Because during COVID, we realized that the shops had all shut down. And there was no way we could sell the comics. And forget about selling the comics, we couldn't print the comics. The printers had shut down. We couldn't store the comics. The warehouses had shut down. So retail came to zero. There was nothing we could do, and one still had to pay salaries. We still had to keep the office going. We couldn't really, it was the bread and butter for so many people. So my CEO, Preeti Vyas, she's a brilliant, I think she's one of the best CEOs we've had. she realized that we had an app, an Amar Chitra Katha app, which we had really neglected. We didn't do much about it. Because print was doing so well, we didn't pay attention to the app. But then she told us that if we have an app already and we have the comics on the app, why don't we just give it to the children to read for 1 month for free? Because they have nothing to do. Suddenly they're locked up in their homes. They have to get used to studying on a computer. And in fact, that had not really started properly at that time. She said, let's do this. Let's just give the children books to read. So we did that. So we announced that Amar Chitra Katha would have had all the stories on it, and Tinkle stories would be free for children for a month. And they could go ahead and read as many comics as they could in that month. And after that month, and lakhs of children, downloaded the app. Lakhs of parents downloaded the app, and we had so many children reading and consuming, and the numbers just shot up to the sky. And after that 1 month, almost half of those people stayed back and started paying for the app. We put up a small payment at that time, and we put up a small fee, and they started paying and using the app. So then it was that was how the app started coming in, and we moved really into the digital era by using that platform to tell stories to the children. So that's how we entered the digital era, actually, in a big way.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, the endeavor is deeply rooted in cultural conviction, as I see that. But then we're looking at a lot of, being a child in this global arena, and there are a lot of global challenges which are at stake. And how is that transition going to take place? How is writing going to be? How are you looking at addressing these issues in the next issues, or how are you planning for it?
You mean the concerns right now? The
global
concerns. Yes.
Yeah.
So the planet we are leaving for the children is a pretty dangerous one. We can see life around us. We can see what is happening in the world. It is not a pleasant place to be in for any child who's growing up. And therefore, there are a lot of reactions, there are a lot of problems. The issues I faced as a child are very different from the issues my children faced and the children today are facing. So we try and keep in step with each generation and their concerns. And today we deal with all these problems in Amar Chitra Katha at least, by dealing, concerning ourselves with stories that talk about, let's say, gender equality. We talk about racism. We talk about, tribes, the importance of the tribal people of India. We talk about all that. In Tinkle, they're talking about subjects like menstruation. They're talking about bullying in class. They're talking about various, things, inclusivity, various topics which concern children today. So we have to keep in touch with them always. Now, in Amar Chitra Katha, for example, I realized that we don't have many women leaders in our, inventory. So then we created stories. The first one we brought out was called Women Pathbreakers. And that took up a lot of the women who were the actually people who stepped out first and faced so much abuse and trauma for daring even to want education, and let alone want education. Going to work, they were discriminated by society, they were discriminated by universities, they were discriminated by professors, but still these were brave women who went ahead and studied and did things, and no school book talks about that.
Right.
No, the children are not even told that, Anandi Bai Joshi was the first doctor, that we owe her a huge debt of gratitude, and Rukma Bai and Anasuya Sarabai. These are all big names which no child will know about. I think a lot of us also don't know about them. But it is because of them that I am sitting here, you are sitting there, and there are so many women in this forum who fearlessly can open their minds and speak and take on a lot more than what women put up, long ago. Then we've got a book on tribal freedom fighters.
Right.
This is also a totally neglected sector. People who, history talks about the big freedom fighters, the big names. Sorry. Okay. You can still hear me, can't you?
Right.
I just got a message. Yeah.
No, we are audible. Yes.
Okay. So tribal freedom fighters. Now, who knew these names? I mean, we know Birsa Munda, but we don't know, Manchi, names like Manchi or, Murmu. These are people who gave up their lives to fight against not just the British, but against landlords, against discrimination. So we've written about them. Then in the Constituent Assembly, there were 399 members originally, out of which only 15 were women. There were only 15 women among the many men who created our Constitution. But we owe the rights, all women's rights, to these women who brought it forward and who, set the rules for us and gave us our rights. So we felt children should know about them as well. So we are more conscious about the world, about what kids should know about. It's not about the long ago past. Of course, that is important. It's not just about gods and goddesses, but it's about the brave heroes, Savitri Bai Phule, Jyoti Rao Phule. These are the people children need to know about and who we write about. Then conservationists, environmentalists, Salim Ali, Jim Corbett. We take them. We take sports people. We've taken Dhyan Chand, and we hope to do more. So these are all the new subjects, the new concerns that we are writing about.
Right. As we talk about this, I always have this question, what is the research team which you have in Amar Chitra Katha board? Because there's always a debate which happens that we need to come up with the contemporaneous topics and the minds, because after a point of time, we are dealing with a different generation altogether. The kind of writing we have, the kind of issues which we are talking about, if you're looking at it from the perspective of the young minds, so how do you identify the research team, and what kind of research goes in behind to decide on what are the titles to be brought, and how do you put up these stories together?
I think we do ideate, we get together, we talk about things, and we get a lot of recommendations from our readers also.
Right.
So we take a lot of help from them as well, and we also ideate among ourselves and think of what we would like to tell the children. Everybody would like to read about a Sachin Tendulkar and Tiger Pataudi or whatever it is, but there are unknown people also. So we're trying to create a balance. Yes. So far, we don't write about living people as such. We wanted to complete an entire life before writing the story of a person. But in the future, we may do living legends as well. So because children identify with who they're seeing right now, and so we are thinking of many levels like that, and we ideate among ourselves. And there's a lot of discussion which takes place. Research is very, very deep because, like for some court case in the Supreme Court, the lawyer apparently presented an Amar Chitra Katha to prove a point. And there are children I have heard who say, I've seen this, I've read this in Amar Chitra Katha, so it has to be true. So Mr. Pai used to always say, this is a huge responsibility we have. So we cannot give information which is wrong. For that, the research has to be very, very accurate, very, very intense. So it's, it's something that we go deeply into. A lot of books are read, libraries are visited. And in fact, earlier we used to even go travel to meet people. Like when we did Tenzing Norgay, my research person traveled to Darjeeling to meet Tenzing's daughter, Pem Pem. Or a person who wrote about Mother Teresa went to the Missionaries of Charity and worked in that convent, in that in that hospital for a whole week to get to know Mother better, through the sisters. So like that, the research has to be intense, and we try to get the stories as authentic as possible, and always concentrate. If you're doing a biography, we try and concentrate on the younger age of the person, because that needs to be an example. That needs to be the inspiration. What inspired a Vikram Sarabhai? What inspired an Abdul Kalam? That sort of thing. So then the children get more and more interested. Abdul Kalam was a fisherman's son, yeah, and he used to distribute newspapers to earn money for his mother. And then from a fisherman's hut, he goes to Rashtrapati Bhavan. That sort of a story which truly inspires, and that is what we were looking at.
Yeah, just giving aspirational desire for the children and how they can achieve it.
Yes.
Now, again, we come to an interesting aspect, as many teachers are there, when it comes to the writing aspect of it. When you are, there's a lot of difference when you write a book to how do you write a comic. Yeah. So how does the entire editorial desk and the writing desk come together?
Comics is a format which basically speaks in pictures.
Right.
It is something that you see more than you read. So, which is why a child who's not interested in reading also picks up a comic, because he starts flipping through it, and then he gets interested in a word or two, or a sound or two, a boom, a thud, or something like that, and then he starts reading. My own younger son started reading because of comics. Otherwise, he was totally hopeless at reading. So it encourages the children, to pick up a book and read. And therefore, as a writer, I try and see to it that my picture, when I'm writing a script, the text has to be minimum. We have something called an upper commentary, which tells you what the situation is. We have the speech balloons, which you see in a comic, which tell you what the characters are speaking. And we may have a lower commentary, which takes the action forward. But apart from these three elements, the basic thing is the illustration itself. So the visual that the writer gives the artist is very important. So when we were doing Paramveer Chakra, we did the stories of all the 21 people who got the Paramveer Chakra.
Yeah.
So we had to give very detailed visuals, for which, of course, we got help from the Army and the Air Force, and we got all the details from them. But everything had to be told that this particular scene has this battalion with these kind of insignia on their lapels. The colonel will be dressed like this, or the major will be dressed like this. The guns, the bayonets, the tanks, they all differ from war to war. Those references have to be collected to be given accurately, because even the helmets change from war to war. So everything has to be very clearly, told. And that is how people think that comics writing would be very easy.
Yeah.
But when they come and write, they realize that it is not that easy to put a huge story. Vikram Sarabhai's life is, it's massive. To put it into a 32-page comic and show the whole thing in pictures, it is an art by itself, and it needs a lot of training. So that is what it requires: concise language, simple words, very simple words, so that every child can understand. Certain things like, we have to talk about suicide sometimes. We have to talk about sati sometimes. We try to avoid these things, but some stories you cannot avoid. Like, if you're writing the story of Rani Padmavati, you cannot avoid Johar. You cannot avoid the fact that, Madri committed, she sat on her husband's funeral pyre. So those things we cannot avoid because it is there. It's part of the storytelling. But then we always put a footnote saying this practice is today banned in India. Child marriage, somebody is married off at 8. Those stories have to be told. But child marriage is today banned in India. So we give a footnote, we give a disclaimer. We tell at the beginning of the comic that this comic will have self-harm in it. So the parents can take a call whether they want to buy a comic or not. So we have to be careful about these things.
Right. As again, I come back to the same question, which we were discussing a few minutes before. When we're looking at issues, we have a lot of these, the youth of today, the children of today are confronted with a lot more of, issues which are of the mind, which are of the confusion which is around. So I think even our literature serves as a vehicle for the society and trying to be, trying to influence the young minds as well. And of course, you eloquently elaborated on how we've been talking about global issues. What I would like to bring in mind is, bring up to you at the moment is, we're discussing about issues which are directly relevant to the youngsters facing issues on psychological issues and, expressing or talking about that in public, the kind of a stress and strain they go through. So have those issues been addressed in the recent past in Amar Chitra Katha? Have there been any stories written on this vein?
See, if you see stress and fighting the system, all these things have always been there with us. Okay. It is relevant now. It has been relevant in the past. So if it is today you're facing a problem in college, you are being, sidelined, you are being ignored, you are not getting what you want. There have been people before you, who have gone through similar problems. So if we tell their stories, then we sort of emphasize on those kind of situations those particular characters were in, which they could overcome by maybe talking to somebody or by looking within themselves, finding the strength within themselves. So, in fact, that was one of Mr. Pai's main ideas, that we don't need a superhero in a comic. We don't need Batman and Superman, because every child has a hero within himself. It is just a question of, making him aware of it. So through these stories which we pick up from the past, we highlight those situations where they have been, people have been marginalized, people have been put aside, people have been discouraged, a lot of discouragement. Somebody like Savitribai Phule would have faced, or Jyotirao Phule would have faced. So how did they conquer these things? How did they get over them? So our stories, Amar Chitra Katha stories, will delve into the past to tell these stories. We'll go to folk tales which help them to realize that there is a way of getting over problems. Tinkle directly addresses them. Tinkle is talking directly to younger children, so they can actually have a story on mental health, on depression, on bullying, on various issues which they can address directly and create a story and put it in Tinkle. Whereas we rely on the stories of our past to take those examples and help children see how did Gandhi overcome this problem, how did Sardar Patel overcome this problem, how did Ram or Lakshman overcome this problem. So through that, we try to tell them that there is always a way to get over something.
Right. So when we talk about this, the transition, we are talking about the transition of children's literature, the Amar Chitra Katha approach. So what would you see would be the next few years transition which will take place? Now you have the app, you have newest of titles coming in, or how do you envisage Amar Chitra Katha? Because you're living the dream and the vision of Mr. Anand Pai.
So right now we are already into various formats like audio and video. We are collaborating with Audible and Wobble for audiobooks. We are collaborating with Zebu for animation, for cartoons. We've made some films also. So we are there on every platform. And we are looking now, it's a world of AI where everybody is using AI and they're creating comics like that,
Yeah.
Like in one day, they can create 10 comics, whereas we create one comic in 6 months. So that is the difference. And we have to very sensibly see how we can work with this without losing our classic Amar Chitra Katha. So those are the discussions taking place right now in Amar Chitra Katha, that we cannot escape from the world of AI at all. It's there, it's just surrounding us and it is crowding us in. At the same time, we do not want our artists to be lost in all this what is happening today. So we want our classic Amar Chitra Katha to stay where it is. We will have our artists, we will draw original art, we will draw on paper, we will do things our way. At the same time, we will use AI for the simpler topics. Somebody wants a comic in a rush. We want this comic in a month, or we want this comic in a week. There are a lot of commission content coming in that way. People commission us for work. So for that, there is a thought that, let's see how we can use AI for that. But Amar Chitra Katha, as far as I know, and while I'm around, it's not going to change into an AI created, comic.
Well, that's brilliant. Yeah, I really like the conviction with which you are
Yes.
talking about it. Well, that again, there's one question which is just from one of the attendees. Is asking that no, there are why were the foreign literary comics in Indian languages essentially replicas of Disney comic books with only linguistic adaptations? Why did Amar Chitra Katha choose not to change the visuals in these early publications? Well, I'm not sure what he's referring to. Did Amar
He's,
Chitra?
he's
Yeah,
referring to the older, earlier comics which had a particular kind of art
yeah,
and not digital art. Is that it? I think so.
yes,
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 yes, yes. So no, we are not going to change those, because see, a certain thing happens at a certain time because that is what is available. So what is created in the 1960s and 70s belongs to a period where children were enjoying those kind of illustrations, that kind of art, and those children have today grown up and they would hate to see those comics change into the digital format. So we are not going to touch anything that we've created in the past because that is very precious to us. That is in fact our heritage, the art that we have over there. So that
yes,
is not going to change. But today we are going to use digital formats. We are going to use various Photoshop and all the software that is available today for for comics making. We will use that. But I still tell my artists, when you first draw a character, draw it by hand, draw it in pencil and send it to us. And then
okay,
you can digitally ink it. After you
yeah,
create the whole thing in pencil, you digitally ink it and then we will color it also digitally. Because initially we had only 26 colors on our palette. And
yeah,
it wasn't very nice, it wasn't very complete. So we had to give only one skin color. All the devas were fair and all the asuras were dark, or all the Hindus were saffron, all the Muslims were green. So there was no, it almost became a kind of a racial discrimination, if you ask me,
yeah,
through color. So that fortunately has ended now. We have the digital coloring, which we have millions of colors and palettes, and we can actually, think differently and use any number of colors to express our feelings. And the more the color, the more colorful the scene, the more interesting it is for children today. Because if the oldest comics are colored in a very flat way, but
yeah,
those are very precious to the children who read it in those days. So they still value it and they give it to their children and grandchildren.
yeah.
And for the children today, we create the new kind of comics. We use the digital medium also.
Right, because I think with the changing times, the look, the feel, the kind of design, the color has got to be a little more contemporaneous as we look
Yes,
at it.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Now there is also a question. I think you've already answered it, but then there's an issue that Amar Chitra Katha should incorporate climate change issues as well.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. So we could do that through people, through
yeah,
biographies of people who
right.
have worked for, climate change. Now,
Yes,
climate change is a relatively new topic.
right.
It's the issue has come up, let's say about 30, 40 years back. That
Yeah,
I remember my father is a scientist and he used to talk about it when I was a child. So it isn't that it's very new, but it's becoming more, and people are becoming more and more aware of it because the result of our neglect is showing now around us.
right.
So but the heroes of today who are fighting these issues, they are still running the race. They're still fighting the fight. And we don't know what will be the culmination, what will be the end. So we're waiting for, slightly more complete lives so that we know the result of what has happened. Now, the person who, the initial people who, like Salim Ali and all, who fought for conservation, who fought for forests, Jim Corbett, who fought for the lives of tigers, even though he's known as a hunter, but he loved the animal and he fought for their lives. So we do write about them
Yeah,
because they've completed their life and we know what they thought of and what they believed in and what they've left behind. But with climate change, we still have to consider it and we have to look at lives around us. And meanwhile, people, of course, takes up the topics. It talks to people. It talks about climate change very directly. They're collaborating with ELTAI, which is an NGO in Bangalore. They're bringing out a lot of articles on climate change and environment conservation. So we are working on it on on these two levels.
Right. Yeah. As we talk about this, there's a lot of interest which is there when people are talking about audiobooks, right? People are talking, but how do you think about Amar Chitra Katha is more to do with the look, the feel, the color, and the design. So how do you think it would, because as you were also saying a while before that you're looking at the audio versions of it, what would you suggest would be the best, given the current times?
Yeah, so see these audiobooks that we are making, Audible is making and Wobble has made, they do use some pictures, but it is basically, it's something that you hear. And children like to listen to it, listen to the stories also. So they're all written in a certain script, not in the comics format, but in a narrative format. Yes. With sound and different voices and all that. So it is like telling a story with the king has one voice and the queen has one voice, and it's done like that for the people who would like to listen to a story in the audio. So we don't want to miss that platform. If somebody is looking for an audiobook, we want to be able to give them an audiobook, and they can take the comic along with it. Right. They can take their comic and they can take the audiobook and they can put the two together and they can use it. And for the YouTube platform also, there's a lot of animation which is coming out. We're making fresh animation on Supandi and Tantri the Mantri and all those characters. Even Amar Chitra Katha, some of the stories are there on YouTube. And so whoever wants to see it like that, it is available. We don't want to say that we don't do this at all. But we will enter every platform. We will see what is the most popular one. And till now, at least, the book, the actual book is what is most popular. That is such a relief to me, and I think to a lot of parents and teachers, that a child still wants to pick up a book and read. That is very, very encouraging. So, so we have to, again, there's a balance to be made in all this.
Yeah, indeed. I guess as we talk about this, we also understand that the art of storytelling never dies. The urge for all of us to listen to stories and tell stories in an interesting way. So I often feel that in an audiobook, maybe it is all the more enhanced. Maybe you have the picture, but it is also enhanced. But the look and feel of reading it from a book, a physical book, is very different.
Yes.
So I think ELTAI also has its movement of the reading movement, which it has set up, and it encourages various education institutions to take it forward. So do you have any the futuristic vision of collaborating with schools or interacting with schools and taking it to schools? What are your plans for that?
We're already doing it.
Okay.
We're already connected with hundreds of schools, and we are running workshops. We go to the schools, we are running workshops, we have online workshops, we have physical workshops wherever we are. When we have my content team is in Bangalore, so we work from Bangalore. So Bangalore and the South we can cover. Then Bombay, a big team is in Bombay, so we do the workshops there as well. And wherever we are called, it could be Arunachal Pradesh, it could be Jammu Kashmir, it could be anywhere. We go and we do these programs. So we are in connection with a lot of schools. We just had a principals conference. In fact, we had a number of principals. I think over 100 principals attended that. To encourage them to try and bring Amar Chitra Katha into the libraries, so that a child gets interested in a topic which may be totally, boring in class in a school book. But if he reads the story in a comic, he will be interested. When he picks up a book and he reads it, he will get interested because he's seen the pictures. He's read the story in Amar Chitra Katha. So it will come back to him, and he will know maybe a little more than the others. So we are talking to teachers, and it is working very well. They're very, very cooperative, and it's been a good thing.
Yeah. So we're talking about schools. Again, we're talking about the digital divide which is there in India. Keeping that in mind, how do you address that issue of taking, because you have one set of, in the rural areas and many parts of the country where internet is still a luxury in certain parts of the country. To places like that, how would you like to take Amar Chitra Katha, and how would you make the children there read? Because they are always given books. If there's an NGO which is working with them, there are copies of it which are given there. So I'm looking at it from your perspective. We'd like to hear about that.
Right. So we are working with Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, I think it is.
Assam, yes.
Yeah. So we work in collaboration with them for 2-tier, 3-tier towns. We have a special program by which we get our books across to schools and children over there. You know, the printed. We are printing in a number of languages for different states. A lot of our comics are being translated, constantly being translated, not just in Indian language, but also, of course, foreign languages are always there. You know, the Chinese, even, I mean, the recent one was from Iceland, we got an order for,
Okay.
for the Gita, So, I mean, yeah, exactly. But for Indian children, we do it in the local language, Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, Tamil, mention it and you have the comic. Then for particular people, like we did a book on U.V. Swaminathan. I don't know how many of you have heard of U.V. Swaminathan, but he's the person who brought Sangam literature back into focus. Like the big books like Kannagi and Manunmani and all, these are ancient Tamil literature which were lost. And this person brought them all back into focus and back into circulation. So we wrote a comic on U.V. Swaminathan, and it has become such a popular one in Tamil Nadu. We've translated it into Tamil and we're distributing it everywhere. So similarly, Sardar Patel in Gujarat or Varghese Kurian, Amul has taken so many copies of Varghese Kurian to give out to the school children there. So Delhi, Assam, all the various, we've got people from all over the country featured in our Amar Chitra Kathas. So we translate and we are sending it, and we're sending it to schools, we're sending it directly to the smaller towns so that children can access it.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's brilliant to be hearing from you the journey of Amar Chitra Katha through a person who lives the passion of Mr. Anant Pai. So your final words, ma'am, about your plans. You've been talking about it all through, but then your plans for Amar Chitra Katha, and more so looking at the futuristic ideas. Maybe a couple of points, and we would take the last questions for the discussion.
Okay. You're all teachers over here, so just to tell you that comics are a great way of learning. Comics are a great way of bringing a message across to a child, because a child is accepting of a comic. He will never reject anything put in panels and in a funny language and in funny faces and in sounds and, gestures. So any message that you want to give your child, to give the children, it is wonderful to do it through the comics format. And for a child to learn about his heritage, as I said earlier, it is an important thing that they learn and respect their own heritage. And for that, I would encourage you all to please, try and introduce Amar Chitra Katha into your libraries so that more children can read them and benefit from them. For the future, I have great hopes that Amar Chitra Katha will continue doing what it has always done, reach out to the children of India. It's for them itself, for children of India all over the world. And I would like them to just appreciate what we have, what the wealth we have, and to recognize that wealth, because it is a wealth that cannot be described, cannot be valued, cannot be measured in quantity, but it is something that will just fill up your mind and expand everything so much. So, and the future, of course, every day it is changing. Technology is changing every day, and we are racing to keep in pace with it. I am growing older, so I may stumble and fall behind somewhere, but I'm sure there's a team, who will take over from me and will continue the good work always.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think I've been listening to you a couple of sessions. I've had an opportunity to be there, as even in the last conference when you came to Calcutta. I think you've been phenomenal in your thought process and very clear with where things have to be and they have to progress. I guess Amar Chitra Katha would be that one vehicle through which we are looking at addressing issues, the global issues, and also look at issues which are deeply focusing on character building of our children and contributing to holistic citizens for the country, and effectively more through the writing and the reading, especially the reading of Amar Chitra Katha. And I guess a lot of encouragement which is coming in for children's literature as one major research area. And I'm sure there are people who would want to touch base with you after a while and discuss with you. And it's wonderful having you, ma'am. And it's always a pleasure to be sitting and listening to the process and the transition the children's literature has had in India. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that lovely session, Soujanya. It's always a pleasure, talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. So over to you, Ms. Shakil.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Reena, ma'am, you both made it so lively with your interesting interaction. That was indeed an engaging and thought-provoking discussion we have had today. On behalf of ELTAI, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our distinguished guest speaker for her time and insights. There were quite a lot of appreciation for Ms. Reena's calm and composed, still powerful presentation, even without a PowerPoint presentation. I thank Dr. Soujanya Pudi for moderating the session and offering your expert remarks. I also would like to thank you for summarizing with the discussion, summarizing the session and handling the Q&A session. Thank you, ma'am. Well, behind the scenes, there is a dedicated team that works tirelessly to ensure the success of ELTAI webinars. I thank the seniors and mentors for their valuable and timely inputs. A special thanks to Mr. Avin, a backbone of the organizing team, for his hard work and commitment to organizing these webinars. And last but never the least, heartfelt thanks to all the participants from abroad and of course all corners of India. Your active participation, questions and insights make these webinars not just informative but also a platform for rich discussion and global collaboration. Please don't forget to fill out the feedback form the link had been posted on the chat box. Certificates will be issued only to school, UG as said, and PG students, ELTAI members and foreign nationals. Ladies and gentlemen, before I wrap up, a few more announcements. Please mark your calendar and save the date for our next insightful ELTAI webinar on Sunday, May 25th, 2025. We have a captivating session planned for you on the topic, strategies for publishing impactful language teaching and learning research. The resource person is Maria de la Caridad Smith-Batson, Professor, Pedagogical Studies Center, University of Las Tunas, Cuba. And can we have the team, the poster for the next webinar? Yeah, that is already there. So registration details and additional information about this exciting webinar are available in the chat box and also on our website. Remember, your active participation is not only encouraged but essential to the success of our events. Let's continue our journey of professional development together. Now it's time for a group photograph. I request everyone to turn their videos on.
Rahul, do we have that film?
Yes, ma'am. We'll be playing it immediately after this photograph session.
Okay. Do we have enough time? Because if there isn't, then you can skip it.
Yeah. After the photograph session, well, all those who are interested, they will stay back, and others.
Okay.
Will
I just want to tell everybody that this is just a short film that we've made for children to understand the process of comics making in a sort of a humorous way. So anybody who's interested.
Sure. I request everybody to turn their videos on,
Sure,
so that we can have a group photograph.